Sudden death in Europe. Investigators try to find out why a cargo plane crashed into a crowded apartment building. And a special week-long Money Crunch report on health care. Tonight, prescription drugs for free and how you can get them. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Senate has just voted to override President Bush's veto of the cable TV bill. This bill is aimed at trying to reduce the power of cable operators' monopoly, trying to improve service, and trying to hold down what you pay for cable TV. Live from Capitol Hill, Bob Schieffer has the vote. Bob?
Dan, this was a very big loss for the president. The House also is expected to have enough votes, Democrats say, to override the president's veto. So the president is going to have his first veto overridden, and by a substantial margin. The Republicans needed 34 Senate votes to sustain the president's veto. They only got 25. All this just a month before the election, when it focuses new attention on the president's opposition to what Democrats are certain to call the year's #1 consumer protection bill, a bill whose merits have been argued out for weeks now in broadcast commercials.
Recently, the politicians listened to us and did something that can help us all. They voted for a bill that will control cable rates.
Blitzing the airwaves with ads like this, consumer groups backed by the networks and local TV station owners pushed hard for the legislation. To them, cable companies are unregulated monopolies, able to raise prices to consumers at will. And cable charges have gone up, on average 61% over the last 5 years. Consumer advocates liked the new legislation because for the first time, cable companies would have to get the approval of the Federal Communications Commission to raise prices to consumers. Crying foul, cable operators countered with ads denouncing the legislation.
It was intended to protect consumers from higher cable TV rates. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that. It's loaded with special interests that could increase your cable rates.
Their point, the legislation also requires cable operators to pay TV stations when they take their programs and put them on cable, something the cable companies have been able to do for free in the past. Cable operators say that cost would have to be passed on to consumers. As expected, the final debate was a mix of substance and politics.
This is politics. This is an effort to embarrass President Bush 30 days before the election, 1 week before the first debate. That's what it's all about.
It is no weakness on the part of the President of the United States if he happens to have a veto overridden. It is no point of disrespect.
So in the end, though, the president just couldn't convince enough Republican senators to switch their votes. So he is about to lose and have his first veto overridden because House Democrats say they have the votes to override too. Dan?
Bob, in the face of voter anger about rising cable costs and what many see as declining service, why did the president veto this in the first place?
Well, the president had very strong support from the cable companies, for one thing, on a political side of it. The other part is the president's philosophy is there's just too much government regulation of business.
Bob Schieffer at the Capitol, where the Senate has just voted to override President Bush's veto of the cable TV bill. With a month to Election Day, Ross Perot has suffered a setback. His economic advisor, John White, the man who helped write Perot's book on how to fix the economy, has announced that he's endorsing Bill Clinton. If you believe the polls, early indications are Perot is not doing well with the voters either. According to the CBS News New York Times poll out tonight, 7% have a favorable opinion of Perot, 59% unfavorable. In a three-way race for president, the poll puts Clinton Gore in the lead, Bush Quayle second, and Perot Stockdale third, down in single digits. A lot of what the voters are seeing and hearing these days is nasty, negative advertising. The Bush Quayle campaign has been concentrating on negative attack ads. They have a new batch just out, and they say that more of the same is coming. Eric Ingberg has more on the power of negative thinking in tonight's Campaign 92 Reality Check.
It's morning again in America. Today,
the last time an incumbent president ran for re-election, he drowned his opponent in a deluge of gorgeous television ads that made voters feel good about the country.
Nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes.
The ad became a classic. a hard-sell, soft-focus display of a president's power to control the images of the campaign. But George Bush's ad team, with a candidate running behind and an economy in trouble, knew the feel-good commercial was out.
This candidate was called up for military service, while this one claims he wasn't.
Feel-bad ads trying to drag down Bill Clinton are regarded as the only hope. In a multi-million-dollar assault, Clinton is being portrayed as a duplicitous blobhead who governs a hee-haw backwater where only the taxes soar. The ads are cleverly worded to suggest Clinton means more taxes.
But here's what Clinton economics could mean to you.
Note the word could, seeming to indicate uncertainty.
$1,088 more in taxes.
But the tax figures jump from the screen with fact-like exactness. They were provided not by Clinton, but by the Bush staff, which admits they are based on assumptions. They assume Clinton will fail to get his program through Congress, that his proposal to tax the wealthy won't raise enough money, and that he will then tax the middle class, which he says he won't.
Well, stacking up assumptions like this, there's a word we use for that.
I think it's lying.
Clinton's ad squad, aware that unanswered attacks looked true, struck back within 24 hours.
George Bush has had the worst economic record of any president.
But if Clinton answers too vehemently or too often, he keeps the issue alive. That's one reason why negative ads work. Democratic strategists know this as well as anyone.
So what these guys are doing is using this ad. No matter how false it is, doesn't matter. It starts the dialogue about how much is Clinton going to tax us.
By tossing everything at Clinton but the kitchen sink, Mr. Bush runs some risks, too. It's not presidential, and it undermines one of his most durable political assets, the widely held perception that he is basically a nice guy. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
This is Mark Phillips reporting. And this little girl was the first star of the modern TV age of negative political advertising. It was an ad for Lyndon Johnson, the point being to show what might happen if Barry Goldwater got his finger on the button in the 1964 presidential race. Or the Nixon campaign in 1972.
He'd cut Navy personnel by 1/4.
This, the ad said, is what McGovern would do to the armed forces.
And carriers from 16 to 6.
In the high-stakes game of political advertising, today's ads are merely politics as usual.
Guess where he'll get the money.
Negative advertising has always worked. It works for products, and it worked in the days of Abraham Lincoln. I mean, this is not new. You go back, and there's been negative advertising as long as there have been politicians.
Lincoln was, in fact, slammed by the opposition of the day for pandering to Southern slaves. Grant, depicted as a drunk staggering from lamppost to lamppost. Jefferson, graphically depicted as throwing up blood and money after being stung by a Napoleonic bee over the Florida Purchase. It may even have been worse back then.
In graphic terms, some of these cartoons showed things that you wouldn't necessarily show on primetime TV. They could be the cartoonists were quite inventive about making fools of the politicians they were caricaturing.
But in today's multimedia race, negative campaigning takes many forms. The TV talk show format has provided the newest form, under attack for his own role in supporting Saddam Hussein before the Gulf War, and on the theory that the best defense is offense. George Bush is now accusing Bill Clinton of intervening on Saddam's behalf.
Yeah, do you know who wanted to make loans, grain credit loans, and got a hold of Mr. Hamdoun, the Iraq ambassador on grain credits? Governor Clinton.
It was a courtesy call by an ambassador. That shows you how desperate and pathetic they are. They will not take responsibility for what they have done.
Negative campaigning is a time-honored exercise in trying to avoid responsibility, in shifting blame and fears onto the other guy. The fact that the Clinton camp has been so quick to respond this time is a testament to how well this sort of campaigning has worked in the past. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, death from the sky, an update on a 747 that sliced through an apartment complex, and the effort to control the industrious beaver. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Now at Red Lobster.
Well, we've got a new special tonight. It's got everything. Petite lobster and 2 kinds of shrimp for just $10.99.
Start with petite lobster tails, sweet and delicious. Add our savory scampi. Then our famous grilled shrimp to top off a terrific dinner.
It's new.
It's Petite Lobster and shrimp 2 different ways for a limited time, just $10.99.
It's delicious.
And it's only at Red Lobster.
Every night during trout season, Ed Russell ties some of the best flies ever seen on Pinecrest Lake. But sometimes his arthritis pain can make it tough to sleep. And that's when his wife Ann gives him Tylenol PM. Unlike ordinary pain relievers, it has extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever, plus a gentle ingredient to help him sleep, which is good news for Ed, but not for the trout population of Pinecrest Lake. Tylenol PM, it puts arthritis pain to rest.
One expert calls it a pilot's worst nightmare, the double engine failure that sent an El Al 747 cargo jet reeling into an Amsterdam apartment complex. Tom Fenton has more on what could be the deadliest disaster in aviation history for innocent victims on the ground.
Rescue workers were checking to see if the remainder of the huge apartment building would collapse before beginning the search for bodies. But there was little chance of finding anyone alive in the rubble. The plane sliced through the middle of the V-shaped building.
It's horrifying because this was one flat. And now it's all open. So you can imagine what happened.
The El Al Boeing 747 cargo jet crashed into the building after declaring an emergency 6 minutes after takeoff. The crippled plane was attempting to return to Amsterdam Airport. 80 apartments either disappeared or were gutted. Up to 250 people were in them at the time. The death toll may never be known. Some of the victims were probably illegal aliens who don't appear on any records, and some of the bodies were probably destroyed beyond recognition by the impact and the terrible heat of the burning aviation fuel. The search for the cause began today with recovery of the 2 engines that caught fire after takeoff and fell off into a lake. Experts said it was very unusual for 2 engines to catch fire simultaneously.
It's possible that one of the engines failed, and it failed so catastrophically that parts of the engine went out and hit the other.
The black box has not yet been found in the wreckage. Israeli officials said it was too early to rule out any cause, including sabotage. But all that was academic for the inhabitants of the huge public housing complex, many of whom are now homeless.
I think aviation is still safe, but I hope other pilots will take another route next time.
Hundreds lingered around the crash site into the evening. Some still looking for loved ones they haven't found. Others shocked that one of aviation's worst disasters happened next door. Tom Fenton, CBS News, near Amsterdam.
Stay here with us for more news and our special Money Crunch report on one of the best-kept secrets in medicine. Some of the nation's most popular prescription drugs free of charge.
Wilford Brimley for new Quaker Oats Plus Fiber.
Every day should feel this good.
Maybe what you need to help feel your best is a good high-fiber cereal. In that case, Quaker's got some good news for you. Quaker Oats Plus Fiber. It's brand new, and it's got as much fiber as a lot of those cold high fibers. But this one, hot Quaker Oats.
Every day should feel this good.
Louise here was saying that she will not freeze her hearty chicken soup in Gladlock zipper bags.
No, I'll only use the bag my mother uses.
Really? Well, let's go live to your parents' house.
Louise, we've switched to Gladlock zipper bags. Their yellow and blue make green seal shows the bag is closed. Your bag doesn't have a green seal. If you'd visit more often, you'd know that.
I'll switch to Gladlock, too.
Isn't it nice to see Gladlock bringing families together? When it really counts, only Gladlock has the yellow and blue make green seal.
I'm using Pam, the only leading all-natural cooking spray to cook a low-fat feast. Pam lets the natural flavors come through, so nothing comes between you and the taste of your food. Pam.
Nighttime, one of the worst times for pain. Minor arthritis pain, muscle aches, pain that seems to go on. That's why you need Ultra Strength Bengay, the strongest Bengay ever. You can say goodnight to your pain with Ultra Strength Bengay.
Campaign 92, the candidates with their plans for America. They come to us to talk to you. CBS This Morning with Harry Smith and Paula Zahn.
The U.S. Supreme Court opened its fall term today. The justices agreed to rule on President Bush's policy of turning back Haitian refugees picked up at sea. Mr. Bush last May ordered boat people sent back to Haiti without hearings. Now, from around the world, more CBS News. In Sarajevo, people trapped in an apartment building had to climb down balconies to escape fires set by Serbian artillery shells. At least 5 apartment buildings in the Bosnian capital were hit, as was a hotel housing foreign journalists. Near Merom, Indiana, an explosion set off a fire at an electrical power plant. A dozen workers were rescued by helicopter from the roof. 3 others were missing. In Buffalo, coils of steel weighing 3.5 tons fell off a truck on an interstate highway. Several cars were crushed and 4 people killed. And USAir is canceling some flights after thousands of machinists went on strike. Flight attendants voted to honor the picket lines, but pilots for the nation's 6th biggest airline, USAir, are staying in the cockpit. The stock market took an early big nosedive today, but then pulled out of it. After a rash of bad economic news last week, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down more than 100 points at mid-morning, but then it recovered to close with a loss of 20-some points. Time now for our weekly update on the U.S. national debt. At last report, the U.S. government owed more than $4,058 billion. This sea of red ink is about $13 billion deeper than last week when we reported to you. Your share of the total, $16,235.
It's night and day the difference Correctol makes when I'm irregular. Correctol is the gentlewoman's laxative that works predictably overnight. No wonder more women trust it. Correctol, gently, predictably, overnight.
Hey, is Tegrin shampoo on sale?
Nope, that's their new lower price.
But it's still just as tough on dandruff, right?
Sure, Tegrin doesn't do less, just costs less.
Sounds right to me.
Tegrin, the right dandruff shampoo at the right price.
V8 has vegetables in it.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Vegetables in it, I heard that.
Here's why I drink it.
Because it's tasty.
I love vegetables.
You hate vegetables.
I like these.
They kind of crush it all up, squish together, and
You can actually taste the vegetables. You know, your tomatoes,
Spinach, celery.
carrots.
It's got vegetables in it?
Yes.
V8?
V8!
You know, when I feel like a vegetable, I drink it.
It's zippy kind of thing, a zippy thing.
Hot coffee and steak in front of strangers at 30,000 feet? Not till I switched. Now I Fixodent and forget it.
That's good. When people are watching you this closely, you just can't be worried about your dentures. That's why I Fixodent and forget it.
Fixodent holds stronger than any other adhesive. It even stands up to the hottest liquids.
Taste it, Grandpa.
He never would have tried this with his old adhesive.
For the strongest hold you can get, Fixodent and forget it.
Take a look at the man in your life. If you could change just one thing about him, would it be his clothes? We'll show you how to dress him up to take him anywhere tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
Children's health in America rates only a C- in a national report card out today. The American Health Foundation gives this nation low grades on children's nutrition, vaccinations, and exposure to lead. Paying for health care of all kinds is a problem for millions of Americans, but there are some ways to save, and all this week, the CBS Evening News will report to you about them. Tonight, Ray Brady tells you how, if you're low income, you can get prescription drugs for free in tonight's report on the Money Crunch, Health Care in America.
One arthritis medicine that I take costs me $93 a month.
It's unaffordable for anybody who doesn't make like $20,000 plus.
You would pay $120 a month for the drugs that Robert Lake takes for his emphysema. But not Robert Lake. A self-employed woodcutter without health insurance, he gets drugs free. That's right, free. From a clinic that gets them without charge from drug companies.
If I didn't have my medication, I would probably be in the hospital right now. There's no way I could afford it if this medication wasn't free to me.
He's not alone. The high cost of drugs, says Senator David Pryor, forces many to make a brutal choice.
It's predicted somewhere between 8 and 10 million Americans are having to make this choice now between buying food for their table or buying their prescription drugs.
Stung by criticism like that, 36 drug companies have formed separate programs to give out free drugs. You don't have to be poor. just ineligible for any government aid and unable to pay. A wonderful move by the drug companies? The program works through doctors. They apply to the drug companies for patients who need it. But, say critics, how many patients know about that?
I think it has been the best kept secret in the pharmaceutical industry. The fact that this program might have been there, but they didn't want people to know about it.
Not so, say the drug companies.
Obviously, only a doctor can write the prescription, so you have to start with the physician. He knows the patient.
But you can get the same information as the doctors from this pamphlet. It lists all the drugs from A to Z as well as the companies that provide them. You can get the pamphlet simply by writing to the Special Committee on Aging in Washington, D.C. For Frank Dilree, the program's free heart drugs are literally a lifesaver.
I get up in the morning, I smile. I don't worry about not waking up in the morning when I go to sleep.
So check it out. For some, free drugs can be a matter of life and death. Ray Brady, CBS News, The Money Crunch.
Stay with us now for more CBS News, including Eye on America. Tonight, a wildlife debate. Good neighbor or pest?
Draw from the facts. There's a way to maintain regularity without drugs. It starts here. A high-fiber diet, which can include Kellogg's All Bran, an excellent source of wheat bran fiber, may help you stay regular, drug-free. And there's a lot to be said for that, naturally. A high-fiber diet and Kellogg's All Bran for drug-free regularity.
At Ford Motor Company, quality is more than just the way a car is built. It's the design of the instrument panel, the richness of the finish, the turn of a wheel, the safety of a loved one. It's the way your car or truck makes you feel. For us, our commitment to quality is an obsession.
And it's paying off. 5 of the 10 best-selling vehicles in America are built by Ford Motor Company.
Ford Motor Company, quality is job one. It's working.
You probably think you know all you need to know about Anacin. Well, you don't know everything. Anacin is such a strong pain reliever, headache sufferers find Anacin more effective against stubborn headaches than regular strength aspirin. So if you get the kind of headaches that affect your work, the kind that put you in a bad mood, the kind that keep you from enjoying yourself, rediscover Anacin for stubborn headache pain.
I'd like to talk to you about an invisible problem. The invisible bacteria that cause denture odor. Fortunately, antibacterial Fixodent kills those odor-causing bacteria for clean, fresh dentures.
Antibacterial Fixodent.
We've heard some of you are waiting for a rice-a-roni with a bit less salt. Well, here you go. Introducing a rice-a-roni with a third less salt and lots of great taste. Good thing there's plenty to go around.
The San Francisco treat.
In some ways, they seem like perfect neighbors. They work hard, and they're eager to take good care of their families. They've been here in America longer than we have. Still, some people can't stand them. Meredith Vieira tells us the tale in tonight's Eye on America.
They look like the creation of some crazed cartoonist. An overgrown rodent with orange buck teeth and a paddle for a tail. So silly looking, but not everyone's laughing.
Beavers are pests, basically. There's so many of them, they've cut down all the trees.
I think the beavers are dangerous. I think people are more important than beavers.
People have always thought they're more important than beavers. At one time, there were some 60 million beavers living in North America, until trappers nearly wiped them out of existence. But today they're beginning to thrive again, thanks in part to stricter hunting laws and the anti-fur movement. Beavers are on the comeback, and so are human complaints against them. Naturalist Hope Ryden says when it comes to beavers, people still don't get it.
They don't seem to understand that the beaver is our #1 conservationist. The beaver not only creates wetlands, it also raises the water tables surrounding these wetlands. It also preserves soil.
But it also eats prize apple trees in Chicago, floods farmland in Wisconsin, and damages roads in Massachusetts. The beavers made such strong dams in Arkansas, it took dynamite to get rid of them. Not to mention the 70 trees they chopped down behind the Gelston's house in suburban Denver. Terry Gelston, who has emphysema, and his wife Glenda moved here for some peace and quiet.
It used to be that you could look out the back here and not see houses in the summertime. Now we could see all those houses over there. The traffic noise you can hear still here now.
People in Boise, Idaho finally reached their breaking point when beaver invaded the river they like to play in.
Make the incision just above the brim of the pelvis here.
In an attempt to humanely control the beaver population in Boise, Dr. Carol Eklund is sterilizing the animals. This 58-pounder is a male.
So what we do is just tie off like they do a vasectomy in people. A lot of people's options to this problem would be to kill them. So at least they get to live a fairly normal life.
But Ryden is not so sure.
I just wonder how cohesive the unit would be after that, because it's really the babies are the glue in a way that keep them happy.
Beavers mate for life, and unlike other rodents whose young leave the nest almost immediately, beaver babies stay with their parents for 2 years before venturing off on their own. Human politicians may talk about family values, but beavers practice them.
Anything that would rob an animal of its status, of its position in its family, would certainly be more cruel than death.
Wildlife manager Ben Tuller believes in controlling beavers the old-fashioned way, and he's convinced the beavers would agree.
If you were a beaver, Ben, what would you prefer, sterilization or the trap?
The trap. Sure. Give me reproductive facility or give me death.
Yes. Sherry Tippy sees the solution lying somewhere in between. She's been implanting Denver beavers with a contraceptive that wears off after 5 years.
Calm down.
Others are being relocated to a stream up in the Rockies that's been stocked with a rare species of trout. It's hoped the beavers will dam these waters and create pools in which the fish will thrive.
Ready?
Go on. Go on.
One can't help but wonder what the beavers think of humans playing Mother Nature and mucking about with their family values. Many Native American tribes believed that when people died, they would come back as beavers. If they were right, the beavers will have the last laugh. In New York, I'm Meredith Vieira for Eye on America.
And that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. See you tomorrow. Good night.
CBS News.
Coming up next on TV8 News, is this the burglary suspect Des Moines police have been looking for? Steve Oswald with tonight's update.
The bush quail campaign officially kicks off here in Iowa. I'm Sarah Jarvis. I'll have a live report. Also tonight, are too many Iowa toddlers missing their much-needed shots? Michelle Parker with that story.
Connie with a changing forecast, and Heidi with a new #1 football team from Iowa. TV8 News is next.
BK, it's the drive-thru. 4! I love this place. Let me tell you what I can do for you. For sandwiches, 99 cents. Breakfast at Burger King. It's just between you and me here, all right? If you don't want to get up early, come in for lunch. I'll get you the flame broiled double cheeseburger for 99 cents. Just tell them Dan sent you. Sound like a winner to me. Okay, sounds like a winner to me, too.
It's your way right away.
I love this place.
Who offers personal, professional health care for everything from colds and flu to heart disease and cancer?
The physicians at the Tower Medical Clinic. That's who.
What is the advantage of having a nationally respected medical university in Des Moines?
Receiving medical care from professors who teach tomorrow's physicians. That's what.
How can I get family health care and specialty care under the same roof?
By calling the Tower Medical Clinic at 279-WELL. That's how.
You're watching today's TV8. And this is News Now. This is TV8 News at 6.
This is William Parrish Jr., arrested in the last hour. Police believe he had a part in that string of home burglaries in Des Moines. Good evening. Thanks for being with us. I'm Sue Mason in for Paul.
And I'm Kevin Cooney. Des Moines police say it's the biggest break they've had in the case so far. Just how important the arrest is in stopping the rash of burglaries, police say remains to be seen. TV8's Steve Oswald has been following the developing story throughout the day. He joins us live from the newsroom with more. Steve?
Well, Kevin, Des Moines police and parole officers have been seeking William Parrish Jr. all afternoon. It wasn't until 5:30, just a half hour ago, that he was arrested without incident on Des Moines' east side. Parrish was paroled from prison just a month ago. Police say he's been to prison 3 times already for theft charges, and if they prove the current charges against him, he may be going back again.
Oh, we've got TVs. Here's a swimming pool, a plastic swimming pool, VCR tapes. A lot of the stuff, the majority of the stuff is stolen. Some of it is found property. A lot of it we're holding for court purposes.
This room of the Des Moines Police Department basement is full of seized property. But one piece here is especially important to the solving of that string of home burglaries. It's a
Fisher VCR.
Police say a man they believe was part of at least some of the burglaries last week took this VCR from a Des Moines home and tried to sell it to someone else.
A gentleman paid $50 for it. Wanted 75, but I guess there's bargaining power with everybody.
And this is the man police say allegedly stole the VCR and tried to sell it to another Des Moines man. Police say someone allegedly overheard William Parrish Jr. trying to sell the VCR, took down the names they overheard, and then called police. Authorities took it from there.
Without it, I'd have had nothing. I'd have still been processing reports. Hopefully, this will be one in a series of a lot of good breaks.
William Parrish Jr. is held in the Des Moines City Jail tonight. He'll be making an initial appearance tomorrow morning on charges of fourth-degree theft and a parole violation. Kevin?
All right. Now, Steve, any other suspects in the cases?
Well, Kevin, police tell us that they have at least 2 more suspects. They have asked us to withhold their names, at least for now. As they often say, the investigation is continuing. Kevin?
All right, Steve Oswald, thank you much. Des Moines shooting victim remains in critical condition tonight. 19-year-old Jason Strode was shot more than 1 week ago, and his mother has claimed that Broadlawn's hospital emergency workers failed twice to find the bullet wound. Strode is now at Mercy Hospital in Des Moines. The unidentified 17-year-old accused in Strode's shooting is being held at Meyer Hall pending a court hearing.
Des Moines police tonight say it now appears a downtown traffic accident did not have racial overtones. 17-year-old Nathan Jordan was struck by a car in downtown Des Moines late in August. Jordan is black. The driver of the car, 18-year-old Craig Kintz, is white. Now, at the time, a witness said it appeared the Kintz vehicle steered toward Jordan. But the investigation has now found a 75-foot-long skid mark indicating the driver tried to stop. However, Kintz still faces charges of driving while intoxicated and possession of marijuana. Nathan Jordan remains hospitalized tonight in fair condition.
Well, with the election now less than 1 month away, the Bush Quail campaign is formally opening its Iowa campaign headquarters. TV8's Sarah Jarvis live with the Bush campaign right now. And Sarah, why the wait to have a grand opening?
Well, they say that this is the time that they are going to take back the campaign. In fact, the Bush Quail 92 campaign officially kicked off this afternoon here in Iowa. And the Republicans here say that they are confident that the president can win in Iowa. You are seeing some of the party earlier this afternoon. But they say there is still a lot to do, especially with the debates coming up. Now, earlier, Governor Branstad, who is chairing the Bush Quail campaign in Iowa, said that the campaign in Iowa must be aggressive. And Daryl Carney, who is with the Bush Quail 92 campaign, is joining us now. Thanks for being with us. Why did you decide to wait until 29 days before the election to have the big push?
Well, I think that always after Labor Day, the campaigns really get underway in earnest, and presidential campaigns traditionally have done that across the country and in Iowa. But our campaign's been going on long before this, of course. Now you're seeing a really strong underway with all these troops backing me up here. So the campaign is really off to a good start, Sarah. We're excited about the debates coming up, starting with this Sunday. We're going to have debate parties. and we're encouraging people to have debate parties around, get their neighbors together, so you can really see the difference between the president and Bill Clinton.
Now, the people back here yelling, "We want Bush." Is the president going to be coming to Iowa?
There is a real possibility that the president will come. We're hoping that he will. We're doing everything we can to encourage that. Iowa looks like it's more of an interest to the national campaign because of the three-way race now.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Daryl. And we are also going to be seeing a few other people campaigning here on behalf of the president. That will be coming up with Charlton Heston is going to be coming to Iowa, too. So we'll be watching this campaign. Kevin?
All right, Sarah, thank you.
Meanwhile, Governor Branstad is defending the proposed state and city loans to Yonkers. Questions were raised last week about whether Yonkers misled Des Moines and the state by saying the state of Wisconsin was ready to offer incentives to attract Yonkers corporate jobs. Wisconsin officials say no specific incentives were offered. Governor Branstad says regardless of that issue, the loan to Yonkers is money well spent.
What we really have here is a very successful Iowa company that has now purchased a Wisconsin-based company, and it's a question of where their corporate headquarters is going to be located. We certainly want it to be in Iowa. We want to keep the jobs that are here. We want to encourage the new jobs to come to the state.
Now, the Yonkers loan may be discussed at this evening's City Council meeting. We'll have an update on that tonight at 10.
There is good news about Iowa's crops tonight. Last week's scattered frost caused less damage than first thought, but the harvest is still behind schedule. Now, as of Friday, just 8% of the corn is out of the field across the state. That's less than 1/3 of normal this time of year. 1/4 of the soybean crop is harvested, about half of normal. However, the crop report says most of the corn and beans escaped frost damage and are still in good to excellent condition.
I tell you, we've had some excellent weather, and Connie McBurney is here now with a chance of showers.
Well, speaking of normal, this time of year is when the weather begins to change. As you know, it's warm and then it's cool and then it's warm and then it's cool, and it's about to be very cool. The jet stream is going to take a dip, leaving us wide open to some cold Canadian air. It'll have a big effect on temperatures. More weather later in the news.
All right, thanks, Connie. Coming up next on the TV8 News, a new push to immunize the youngest Iowans. Michelle Parker has details.
And beware of the bees this time of year. Martin Augustine with that story when we come back.
The eyes of America, all beautiful to us,